Hey guys, it's Leah here, and I'm back with a little bit of a different video than usual today. Instead of our regular reaction videos that we usually do, I thought I would mix it up since it's the end of the year and do a video that I've been wanting to do for a while, which is, you probably already guessed it from the title, but it is my personal list of the top 10 best films of 2023. Now, if you're new to the channel or just don't know, I actually have a degree in media production and a minor in film. So if you're wondering why you should be listening to some girl on the internet talk about movies, I at least have some kind of background with this stuff, and I wouldn't really be making this video if I didn't know what I was talking about. But keep in mind that this list I curated kind of leans towards more just personal preference, and like everyone's opinion is different, so it's focusing more on preference than objectivity, if that makes sense. For example, I usually enjoy more action and thriller films than romance ones, so you'll probably see more of that type of genre on this list, more likely than not. But with that being said, enough rambling, let's get into my favorite films of 2023, starting with number 10. The Killer, directed by David Fincher. It follows an assassin as he embarks on an international vendetta after a hit goes wrong. I was excited because I love David Fincher. One of my favorite movies is Seven.
Oh, you were the box. What was in the box?
And one of my favorite parts of this film is the camera work, the cinematography, and the audio. And I just also enjoyed the inner monologue, which was surprising. No surprise here, but the acting is great. Michael Fassbender is top notch. He's intimidating, and everyone else in the film is really good as well. It's mostly Fassbender taking up the most screen time, but the other characters do show up, and when they do in the short screen time they have, they make an impact. Particularly Tilda Swinton was really good. The reason that this is not higher up on my list is the ending was kind of anticlimactic. It kind of just fizzled out, and I didn't really care or sympathize with the characters since they were all kind of like evil. Most of them anyway. And also, one other thing, the score wasn't super memorable. The audio was, like I said before, with the diegetic and non-diegetic music. I think it really like brought you into the world, but the score didn't really stick out to me. They never really explained his backstory and how he became an assassin, and I feel like that would have been good to like flesh out his character a little bit more. So that's kind of the reason why it's lower, but still a really good solid film and a really well done fight scene. One of the best fight scenes I've seen all year. Now moving on to number 9, Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. The sequel of Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse, this follows once again Miles Morales and his journey, well, I guess across the Spider-Verse again. This animation was beautiful as expected. It was extremely fluid and creative, and I loved all the like little Easter eggs and Spider-Man lore kind of buried throughout. And also how they connected all the other Spider-Man movies, even like the live action ones. You saw little clips. I thought the new characters that were introduced were super interesting, and the voice acting was really good from everybody. And you also really feel for the returning characters like Miles and Gwen, and you want to see them like succeed, if that makes sense. The only negatives I could really think of is kind of left on an unfinished story arc, so it kind of felt slightly unsatisfied. However, it was a really well done cliffhanger, so I'm not too mad about it. Overall, really well done movie, and I'm excited for the next one. At number 8, we have Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Now this, you're probably wondering why this is like higher up than the last two. I think it's just because I enjoyed it like so much. It's just like a really entertaining and fun film. If you haven't heard of it before, it's based on the tabletop role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons. It's a fantasy, heist, comedy, and action film all rolled into one, and it was just like overall entertaining. That's like the word I could describe it as. It had really creative action sequences. I remember there was like a really long shot, or long take I should say, during the action sequence, and it was really good. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it. Chris Pine really shows how charismatic he is as an actor. I enjoyed the dynamics between the characters, and there were effortlessly funny scenes throughout, like the graveyard scene. Ah, so good. At number 7, we have The Creator, directed by Gareth Edwards, and this film focuses on a future war between the human race and artificial intelligence. This had really good acting, especially the main child actress, Madeline Young Volas. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not, but she basically stole the whole movie. She was absolutely great. And the special effects for this film were like astonishing, considering the budget was like around 80 million. And Marvel and DC are making films with like over 200 million budgets look like this, like just bad. It really shows what you can do with well placed CGI in time, enough time to do it. But I also really loved that this was an original story. It wasn't a remake, it wasn't a sequel, a prequel, reboot, etc. You know what I mean? Like it was just something new, and Hollywood needs to do more of that. The only negative I could really think of is the script worked, but it felt pretty basic. There was nothing super groundbreaking, and the pacing was almost too fast, I feel like. It seemed like they kind of cut some scenes in the editing room process. And then I think also the main character was well acted, but it was kind of like bland in personality. I wish he had like a little something more. But overall, a really entertaining sci-fi film. Moving on to May December, a psychological character study about a Hollywood actress who travels to meet and study the life of a controversial woman played by Julianne Moore. This is wild. This movie is wild. I wasn't expecting much. This is not really my cup of tea, but it had amazing performances by all three main actors, Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, but especially Charles Melton, which surprised me because I haven't really seen him in anything else. I think the only thing that I recognized him was from Riverdale, but I didn't even watch that. Like, I just knew that he was in that. But from the way he carries himself to his like understated acting, it was such a good portrayal, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. I was super surprised. I also enjoyed the piano score throughout. I think it worked really well. And some people like described it as a dark comedy, but I didn't laugh like once. I was like mostly horrified. It felt like a psychological horror to me. And my favorite scene, I think, is when Joe, Charles Melton's character, tries to talk about what happened to Julianne Moore. And like, it's just one of the last scenes, and it's like heartbreaking. There's so many like kind of heartbreaking scenes towards the end, and you really, really feel for the character. I think the only like why this is not higher up on my list is like, although I do agree that the awkwardness of many scenes were purposeful throughout, I just found it uncomfortable to watch, and I don't think I would be rewatching this film anytime soon. Like, objectively very good, but entertainment-wise, not for me. But overall, really good film. Killers of the Flower Moon, an American epic Western crime drama directed and produced by Martin Scorsese. Like, insanity that we're getting all these films in 2023 by crazy talented directors. But the one thing I want to mention about this movie the most is Lily Gladstone. She was a complete standout, as was Leonardo DiCaprio, but like we expect that. Lily Gladstone was great. So many great scenes in this film, ranging from emotional to intense, funny. It did not feel like a 3.5 hour movie. I think the pacing was pretty solid. But I did find the last part a kind of little bit rushed with an exposition dump of like what happened to all the characters using like a radio show, if that makes sense. I don't even think that scene was necessary, and they could have ended it before it with like the last scene being Molly leaving the room. I don't know. I guess Scorsese wanted to wrap things up, and it does make sense to inform the viewers what became of the characters since it was based on a true story, but I felt like it wasn't really needed. Overall, the action was good, the storyline was good, the acting was good. Another really good Martin Scorsese film that I recommend. Anatomy of a Fall. This is a French courtroom drama directed by Justine Triet. I hope I'm not butchering that, sorry, but it's about a woman who is suspected of her husband's murder, and their blind son faces a moral dilemma as the sole witness. Oh, I love this film. It had incredibly nuanced and realistic acting. And I was especially impressed by the main child actor, since I feel like child actors can be hit or miss in many films, for me personally, but Milo Machado Graner was awesome in this film. He really showed like the range he possesses as an actor. I was really blown away. And I also really just enjoy courtroom dramas, and this was done really, really well. I was extremely invested in the case throughout the whole film and was like actually continually changing my mind about whether she did it or not. Just a very compelling murder mystery. That was a fascinating watch, especially since it took place in France and how their trial processes, if that makes any sense. And let me just tell you, I don't know how accurate it was to like the actual judicial system in France, but it was so much more chaotic and lenient in the sense that like the prosecutor and defense were able to speak more freely and speculate throughout the trial. So it was fascinating to watch. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. It's half of it's in French and like some's in English, so it's kind of like a little mix, but it's really, really well done.
Godzilla Minus One, directed by Takashi Yamazaki. It is the 37th film in the Godzilla franchise, and this movie was insane and an awesome theater experience. But the best parts about this film were the characters. You legitimately cared about what happened to them and wanted to see them succeed. This takes place shortly after World War II, so most of the characters have already been through like a lot, and now they literally have to deal with Godzilla showing up out of nowhere. It's wild. I thought the CGI was pretty solid, and I really enjoyed the musical score as well. And I really thought the idea of the main character being a kamikaze pilot during World War II was a great storyline, and I kind of loved how it came into play during the final act of this film. It really tied everything together. All in all, definitely the best Godzilla film I've seen, and even if you haven't seen a Godzilla movie or aren't a fan of the franchise, I still think you will truly enjoy this film.
Past Lives is at number 2. It is an American romantic drama film written and directed by Celine Song in her feature directorial debut. It follows two childhood friends over the course of 24 years while they contemplate the nature of their relationship as they grow apart, living different lives. This movie was awesome. And I said earlier at the beginning of this video that I don't like the romance drama. So this kind of shows how good it was to put this so far up on my list. This movie is shot beautifully, from the framing to the lighting, and the acting is subdued but like perfect. And also the chemistry between the characters, which is super important. It just felt so real. It was like just incredibly mature with a bittersweet message. Like, I could talk about this for a while, but I cannot reiterate enough how good that last scene was, especially the quick cut to their childhood selves. I won't spoil it, but like, it almost like made me tear up, and I never cry. Like, I'm an emotionalist person. I am not a romance fan by any means, but I really enjoyed every bit of this film. I literally can't even think of any negatives off the top of my head right now. Now, before we get into the number one pick, I wanted to give some honorable mentions that didn't make the list, but I still really enjoyed, and that is Talk to Me, Barbie, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Polite Society, and Blackberry. Okay, my number one favorite movie of the year was Oppenheimer. You probably already know all about this film, but if you don't, if you're living under a rock, it is a beautifully directed movie by Christopher Nolan, one of my favorite directors. An amazing understated performance by Cillian Murphy, Oscar worthy. I think he deserves the Oscar for sure. He was great, as expected. I love him. He's one of my favorite actors working today. But not only that, it was just gripping, and it did not feel like a 3-hour movie to me. It was entertaining all the way through. There was never like a slow moment where I was like dragging through it, which is crazy. And the portrayal of each historical figure that kind of made cameos throughout the films were like great. It was awesome, from Einstein to Truman. The practical effects were also top notch, and you could really appreciate all the hard work that they did to make this epic film. Overall, just an epic film that I recommend to anybody. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this list of my top 10. Let me know down in the comments if you guys agree with this list, what you would change, what you would put in your top 10 list. I would love to know. I always love reading your guys' comments. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!